Hi, my name is Georgia Bonney, and I am making a presentation about a homeschooler's journey through college admissions. And so let me tell you a little bit about myself. We have a large family, 14 children. 7 have gone on to college and graduate school, and every one of them has taken a slightly different path. So if you think that I have a silver bullet, I don't. So I'm sorry to disappoint you in that way. However, I do have experience behind me in approaching college with a homeschooler from various avenues. And so your child and their dreams for the future and your and the schools that you're looking at, these all play as factors into your college admissions experience. And if you are the mother of a younger child and you're worried about going through the college admissions program as a homeschooler, don't be, because it is manageable and it can be done. I'm going to show you some of the things that have worked for my family, and hopefully this will help guide you. And if you're able to talk to other people who have been through this experience, please do, because everybody will give you a little bit more of a picture of what can be done, what can't be done, what you should be worried about, what you don't need to worry about, and that will all mold the way that you move forward through those final 4 years of high school. And so as we schooled our children, we were fairly free with them. We had a very academically based home, but it wasn't until 9th grade that everybody knew things would get quite serious. And so I'm going to take you to the next pie chart. Okay, so what we have found is that everybody gives you different advice. I'm going to flip you through 5 pie charts, and they're all going to tell you something entirely different about what's plays into a college admissions decision. And here they say GPA is the most important, and test scores hardly matter at all. The next one, GPA is a quarter of it, and standardized tests are just slightly less. And then all these other things come into it, and then a quarter of it you have no control over at all. This one talks mainly about the application and what is most important in the essay. And the next one, GPA is super important, and standardized tests are a little bit less. I have found none of these to be correct. Standardized test scores, GPA, and personal statements all being equal. Quite honestly, I have found that the SAT and the ACT, fortunately or unfortunately, are the #1 factors in college admissions decisions. If your student doesn't have these scores, it is the fastest and most efficient way for an admissions office to discard their application. So it's very important that as soon as your student gets to about late 9th grade, early 10th grade, that they start looking at SAT and ACT preparation experiences. Of course, you don't want to start too early because they're going to burn out, and they'll get so weary of hearing about these tests that they'll just loathe the whole idea. And that's not what you want to do, but you do want to prepare them sufficiently for these exams. Now, I suppose different schools give different weight to them, but the schools that my children have applied for it's always seemed that these SAT and ACT scores were of the utmost importance, especially as a homeschooler, because your GPA, your high school transcript, holds very little credibility if they know you're a homeschooler. We went to Yale and went through the student orientation program and talked to college admissions, and the condescending tone with which they spoke to us was you could almost cut it with a knife. They said to the effect, well, of course you'll be #1 in your school because you're the only one in your homeschool, right? And they just laughed. And they did say that they had homeschoolers there, but it sounded like the possibilities of getting into a school like that, they didn't have a lot of respect for homeschoolers. So in order to get into a bigger school, you're going to have those scores. They're going to have to be really tremendous. And as far as GPA goes, we have found that the best way to do it is to either have your student do AP courses online, in which case their schoolwork will be considered credible because they will have the exam scores. But even more efficiently, we have found, well, here, let's back up a little bit. AP classes, pros and cons. Of course, you get a deeper subject study. It's a lot of work for your student to do an AP class. There's some amazing AP classes online available. We used Pennsylvania Homeschoolers, and that's a completely asynchronous process. It's very, very, very well done, but it worked for my son, but it was a disaster for my daughter. So if you have a student who does asynchronous programs or does AP study all on their own, they're going to have to be the type of student that is very disciplined and flourishes by just working out of a book. And that's not true for all children. And of course, if you have an AP class and AP score, it's going to demand more respect on your transcript. It gives you credibility. However, if you're taking an AP class, let's say you send them back to high school, which I did with a couple of mine for the AP classes. Well, some of their teachers were great and some of them were really quite poor. And so my son was even asked to write the final exam for his AP biology class, and the teacher was not prepared to teach that class at all. And when he got to the AP exam, he said he could have closed his eyes and just filled it out and done as well as he did. And yet he got perfect scores on his other AP exams. So you don't know what kind of a situation you're sending your child into when they go into an AP class, unless of course you have a history and you know about that teacher. Another thing about an AP class is that you don't know what teaching style they're going to use. And this does come into play for different students. You don't know if your child is going to flourish in that kind of learning environment. And the last thing that really for us was a clincher is that you pay that test fee with no guarantee, number one, that they're going to feel well on that day, that the test is going to go in their favor on that day, that the right material has been covered for them, or even that the college is going to accept those AP points. I mean, if they don't get a 5, well, the college that you're applying for accept a score of a 4 or a 3. And if they do, is it really going to get them out of any classes? And so AP classes are a bit of a gamble. They're an awful lot of work with a not so sure outcome. What we have found really worked for us is the dual enrollment program. And it's been a great transition for our children because they can go to the community college and take these college classes, and yet they're still at home. And so it's a bit of a transition for them to go into a social experience where they have to answer to a professor. They have to do all that's required of them. They have to do midterms and exams. They need to learn to get their assignments in on time. They also need to learn to to flourish socially and to work well with the professor. And this has been a positive experience for all my children. I haven't had one yet that didn't flourish with the dual enrollment program, but it's a real benefit if you live near a community college that offers the dual enrollment program. So the pros, I only have pros as far as our experience with dual enrollment. And just so you understand, in case this is your first encounter with dual enrollment means that they're taking college classes while they're in high school. So these classes count both as high school credits towards their high school diploma, and they count towards college classes. So if they complete an English class, it can be counted towards their high school diploma and also may get them out of their general ed English class. And that's true for their social sciences, psychology, sociology, their math classes, their history classes, their fine arts classes. And several of my children have finished almost all their general ed classes through dual enrollment, which meant that they only had to go to college for 3 years. And that's a big money saver. So back to dual enrollment. It gives you a really credible transcript because you're sending in that community college transcript with all those courses on it. And it gives them the transition from homeschooling to college life. And their grade is, they're going through a process. They're taking classes. And so if their one grade goes down, they can fix it with the next grade. It's not like the AP exam, which is a one-day, a make it or break it kind of experience. And also you have professors. And professors I have found at community colleges are very kind. They understand where homeschoolers are coming from, and they understand that they're going through a transition. And so they're willing to work with the student as long as the student is willing to work with them. All right, so we've gone through, first of all, you need to have really high test scores. You need to prepare for those. You need to study. The student needs to do practice tests. You can find help with those standardized tests by going to Khan Academy. There's also other places that they could go to get assistance. One is called Magoosh, Magoosh, but they're a little pricey. That's $100 a month to access their classes. You can also get tutors, tutors online, tutors in your community. I had a sweet girl, newly married in our church, who came and tutored my two oldest children. She was happy to have a job, even though she had a newborn, and she came and tutored them, and that was not too terribly expensive. However, when you go to do those standardized tests, you must make sure that your student has reached probably pre-calculus by 11th grade, because that will really give them a head start on the math. The math will be easy. They just have to make sure they remember the easier math and the formulas, but they will be so literate in math that it won't be too difficult. Also with the English, they should have taken some serious composition classes, and of course done all the practice tests in their standardized test book. And then we moved on and talked about the GPA, and that's very important, that you have a credible transcript. Now, it is possible to have a homeschool transcript that looks official. We actually bought a stamp, and we bought, oh, it's gone out of my mind, but embosser. And we emboss and we stamp our transcripts, and we have a logo, and we make it look very official, and we send that in to the colleges. Sometimes we don't even admit that we're homeschoolers because we have that community college transcript attached to our homeschool transcript, and no questions have ever been asked. We have also admitted that we are homeschoolers when we apply for college, and we've been told that they don't want to see anything but the test scores. They don't want to see a transcript. They don't want to see a portfolio, a reading list, nothing. They just want to make the decision on the test scores, in which case we went ahead and sent in the portfolio and the reading lists and everything else in addition to the test scores, because we just felt we were being underrepresented with that application. So that takes us through the first two parts of the application: test scores, which I think are the most important, and then your GPA, which comes in second and needs to be something that's very credible. Third, for your college admissions, is that section where you write the essays. And it's also important that you be prepared for the awards and achievement section of the college application. But we'll start with community service. So for community service projects, I think it's very important that the student have an idea where they're heading. Now, it's possible, it's most likely, that they will change their degree once they get to college. I think all of mine have changed their degree once they arrived at college. And we tried very hard to channel them towards a certain area, but then they get there and they find out, oh, I took this class that was never available to me before, and this is something I really enjoyed doing. And so, but if you give them opportunities to try out different things, then they will have more experience on which to make that decision. And so please be careful about streamlining their activities so that they all lead them towards a certain goal or a certain area. So here are a list of fun things that interesting things that could be done for community service. The Rotary Club, I think, is a very strong one because the Rotary Club also offers scholarships. So when you're applying for college, you are not only just preparing them for those college admissions, you're preparing for scholarship applications. And scholarship applications are going to require all these things as well. They're going to require the test scores, they're going to require the GPA, and they're going to require to see all the volunteer work that they may have done, any employment that they did. We've never taken that part too seriously because our children were always so busy with their academics and all their other activities to help prime them for the college experience and for their futures as adults. But, and then there's the awards and achievements. Now that's very difficult as a homeschooler. It's tricky to get into a spelling bee or into National History Day or any of those events that the public schools offer. However, if you're part of a co-op and you're in the leadership, you may want to look into having your co-op be one of the preliminary levels of the Scripps National Spelling Bee, or maybe work with your school district to be part of the National History Day experience. So you need to really think about that, because once you get to your college admissions and you look at that section, unless they have done something with an organization that includes homeschoolers in a competitive environment, that section is going to be left empty. And that's really difficult to do when you're filling out those college admissions. All right, moving on. I want to say that there are no silver bullets for applying for college. I'm going to tell you just a short story about my son. So my son has pursued economics as his field, and he finished his undergraduate work and went on to do a pre-doctoral fellowship with one of the top economists in the world at the University of Chicago. My son graduated as valedictorian of college. He got a perfect GRE score, and he's being mentored by this wonderful economist who's respected worldwide. And he applied for graduate school, and he got into MIT and Yale and University of California, Berkeley, University of Chicago, into 2 programs at Stanford. And so we were feeling quite confident, that he was doing so well. And then he didn't get accepted into Princeton or Harvard, and yet his colleague got accepted into Princeton and Harvard, but didn't get accepted into some of the schools that he did. And you look at it and you say, why? And at first we thought, it couldn't be the GPA, he had a 4.0, it couldn't be the GRE, he had a perfect score. It must be possibly that they didn't agree with the mentor that he was working with at school. Except that doesn't work either, because his colleague has the same mentor. And so when you apply for college, you have to accept the fact that it's a bit of a gamble. You will never know exactly why you were declined. And that's what makes it so difficult to find that silver bullet. We don't know what the perfect answer is. But as I gain experience with these college admissions, I have learned that what they're looking for is just a great fit for their particular campus and their particular teaching philosophies. If they're big on diversity, you should know that before you apply. You should show diversity in your essays. You should show diversity in your experiences. You need to know that university well, and you need to be looking at professors' bios and what classes they're offering and what principles those colleges stand for. And so college admissions is something that you're going to have to do with a lot of prayer, a lot of thought, and a lot of preparation. And I wish you luck with it. I hope that what I've offered you has been helpful. I wish I'd known these things before I got started applying for college with my kids, but we all learn as we go down the path. I also want to let you know that I am the founder and owner of thethinkingkid.org. I'm the executive director, and we offer classes of all types, including SAT and ACT preparation. So if you would like to go ahead and go to thethinkingkid.org, we would love to have you join our email list, and so we can send you a free gift. And also, if you're interested in these classes, we offer a $1 trial class, which you can see at the bottom of the screen. If you just need to go to thethinkingkid.org and go to the trial classes and give it a try. It's just $1, and it's a lot of fun. And we are mainly focused on children between the ages of 7 and 13. So not those heading into college yet, but if you have younger siblings, we'd be happy to have you. All right, thank you so much for listening. I wish you all your luck with your college admissions process. Is that good? Mm-hmm.